Hey, everybody. Once again, this is Micah Lieberman with Scope. Today, I am once again interviewing people who are doing very interesting work in clinical research. And this is always fun because I get to talk to people who are capable and passionate, and they do what they want to do. They have vision and they make it happen. So today I have Tyler Van Horn, who is the CEO of Science 37, and I have Jeff Richardson, the SVP of Operations from Science 37. And we're talking today because you guys are finalists for Scope's 10th Annual Participant Engagement Award. So congratulations, Tyler and Jeff.
Much appreciated, and thanks for having us and setting up the conversation.
Oh yeah, this is fun stuff. Okay, so you guys, you made the cut. There were a lot of amazing presentations and submissions, and you sat in with a whole group of judges and told us what you were doing. The name of your case study is Pharm-to-Trial, Pharm, Pharm-to-Trial, very cute, like farm to table, Pharm-to-Trial, expanding trial access into agriculture-centered U.S. communities. Okay, so that's the name. It was a great name, but there's a lot to the story. So I guess two things. One is I want you to talk a little bit about what is the story? What did you guys do? Because some people know it, but most people, they're not going to know about it until they hear about it at Scope. So Jeff, Tyler, tell us what Pharm-to-Trial is.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I could start high level context about Science 37 and what we do, because I think it'll make sense as kind of we dig into the details a little. So Science 37, fundamentally, we're a patient access company. And so we look at clinical trials and we operate as a clinical trial site. We just do it a little bit differently. Our typical format in which that we operate clinical trials is we operate them at patients' homes. And so as a site, we have investigators, nurses, clinical research coordinators, all the support and logistics that are behind it that are direct to patient to be able to enroll a patient essentially across all 50 states, regardless of where a patient is located. So disaggregating the geography component from a clinical trial site, if you will. In this particular case study, we used and leveraged our existing infrastructure from a direct-to-patient perspective, but we're able to reach into agricultural communities, specifically using community pharmacies. And so the setup here was still one site for all 50 states. We just had locations that were local specifically to where the patient populations were. In this particular case, it was farm workers that typically were engaging with livestock that were that are of various different backgrounds, and so providing them access to clinical research. And also, there was no traditional clinical research infrastructure around those existing farms, if you will. So the Pharm-to-Trial name is kind of a little bit of play. There was pharmacies, community pharmacies involved, looking at targeting farm workers, as well as leveraging our existing direct to patient infrastructure to be able to support the enrollment of the trial wherever the patient was in this particular case.
Right, rural access. Okay, and then Jeff, keep going. I wanted to ask about. I have a question, but before I ask a question, I want to give you a chance. What are some things that were especially challenging about accessing that particular population?
Yeah, so we get presented with a lot of opportunities to solution for trials that are kind of not your typical like brick and mortar surrounding, bringing like the average person into the average sort of trial. We get a lot of unique opportunities. This is one that I really love because it's so like unique in its setup. But like it lends itself so well to the tools and like things that we can bring to a trial that nobody else can really do. Certainly our partnership with local pharmacies and with RxC2, like it's great. Like we were able to build this solution that otherwise, like we sat around and thought about this for a while. Like, I don't know how you would find hundreds of people with this specific demographic, like overlay of like job and function and kind of like where they are in proximity to livestock. How do you do that in a way that scales without opening up like a number of, I don't know, tents outside by the side of a road?
Yeah.
So it's just neat that we get the opportunity to do that. So love that we had that chance.
So so looking at this rural population, very spread out, must have contact with livestock. So you have a general demographic of of where to start. But like you said, that's extremely spread out. It's all over the country. That's good because there's no shortage of these people.
Yeah,
But
they're very concentrated in locations, but in locations where there are not typical community
right,
health services that you'd expect. Like you're not within, I think the average person living around a or like suburban area might be 5, 10, 20 miles from a typical brick and mortar existing site.
right, right,
If you work at a meat packing plant at a
right,
Tyson plant somewhere, like you might be like 80 or 90 miles from a
right.
traditional site. But that becomes massively impractical. You have one, just engaging with patients initially is terrible, but then like how do you maintain contact with somebody who has a 90-mile drive to where your site is?
Yeah, right. So it's not only finding them, figuring that out, it's about meeting them where they are and also retaining them. So it's a hub and spoke model, right? It's a hub and spoke model. You guys are all over the country. So go one step further. Keep going on that, Jeff. How
Yeah,
did you
so
maintain that contact, keep them engaged besides the initial
yep. Well, one thing I
location
want to point
contact?
out, the hub, like a number of organizations offer like similar hub and spokes. Like you have a single company that has many sites. Where that adds complexity in a typical trial is you've now got 25 sites and 25 1572s and 25 different PIs and 25 different ways of doing
Right.
things. It's very complicated. We kind of short circuit all of that. And like Tyler mentioned that in the first minute, we're one site that operates in this distributed, decentralized manner, which makes it a lot easier for us to engage with patients, but also to engage back with the sponsor. Everything becomes the level of friction drops by an order of magnitude.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of discussion at Scope over the years too about accessing types of populations and especially rural populations that lack healthcare. Like this is from a healthcare perspective, from a research perspective. So, pharmacies are everywhere, but not really. As you said, they're not always. We take things for granted. We take some of that basic retail infrastructure for granted, right? So keep going on that because you are increasing access to rural populations. You're giving them access to cutting edge research and care. What was that initial contact like? If I'm on one of those spokes in rural Missouri at a meatpacking plant, I'm one of those workers. What did that initial contact and engagement look like?
So, I mean, Tyler, you can jump in a second too, but what we typically find, especially in like the rural areas, and again, this is like a benefit of us having this community pharmacy partnership. In those like kind of like farther out places, most like you might not have a lot of doctors, like big offices, a lot of even like commercial pharmacies. Like there's not a lot of
Right.
CVSs. Like
No.
where I live, there's a Rite Aid and a CVS on every corner, right? If you live 150 miles outside of Missoula or Montana or wherever there's, I don't know where the meat pack, I don't know exactly, like pick a location, but your community local independent pharmacist is your healthcare provider. You go to them obviously for medicines and prescriptions, but you might also go to them for medical advice. We find that a lot with people in these areas. The interactions the pharmacists have, and when we get to interact with the pharmacist and then transiently through the patients, they are the medical provider for a lot of these people. They're their trusted advocate.
Right.
They're their trusted confidant. Like they become this local center of medicine.
That is the answer. You gave a good answer. And I remember that too. I used to live in Germany, and I remember the role of the pharmacist, the apothecary in Germany was very different than the US.
Yep.
Before I went to the doctor, I would just go and be like, hey, this is going on. And they would give you common sense advice to keep you out of the system.
You don't
and it would
typically
work.
get that at like commercial pharmacies, but for whatever reason, like obviously independent pharmacies are getting smaller and smaller every year, but there's a network, this big combined network of them that work together.
Yep.
They really provide this unique service to these communities.
I agree. It's like it actually was common. That was how it was. Yeah. All right, that's a good answer. I think this is exciting. So you have a whole bunch of people. A big part of your team will be at Scope. You'll be presenting this in detail at Scope, plus some other work you guys are doing and other people within. You have a lot of services and a lot of capabilities, but this particular case study is super interesting. I give you a lot of credit. So congratulations on being a finalist for the Participant Engagement Award. And no matter what happens, this story is amazing. So good job, Tyler. Good job, Jeff. Congrats to Science 37 and your partners at RXE2 as well. It's just a good story. So
Thanks, Micah.
yeah, see you in February.
Thank you.
Thanks, Micah.